Namaste, sir. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Namaste. How are you?
I'm good, sir. Gautam Desiraju, professor, is one of the most reputed scientists in the country. And now, sir, you have written this book, Bharat 2.0. Let me show the cover. You can also, yeah. Uh, Fantastic book, sir. Thank you for writing it. And the title is Bharat India 2.0. So let me ask, what is wrong with Bharat 1.0 or India 1.0?
Well, every country has a 1.0 or 2.0 because countries are not static. And I think 1.0 might have been okay for its time. Don't forget that when India became independent in 1947, we had to face problems, multifarious problems, different kinds of problems that other countries have faced over a certain length of time, decades and sometimes even centuries. We had to face all the problems almost at the same time.
Mm.
For example, let us take health, the mortality rate, the lack of education, our utter poverty, untouchability, the Hindu Muslim problem because of the gut wrenching nature of the partition, which gave us India as we know it today. So each one of these problems would have been tremendous for any country to face alone. We had to take them all together.
Mm.
And at the same time, 1.0 managed to maintain itself as a democracy, at least with some kind of a system of elections, parliaments, and representative government. So 1.0, I think, was okay for part of its time. But I view the sort of honeymoon period over as 1967 or so,
Mm.
when for the first time the Congress party uh, lost its majority in the Lok Sabha. And I also view that 67 is the beginning of this time when the Congress party stopped looking like what it was prior to that. I mean, till 47, it was a national movement.
Mm.
After 47, it became a political party, but still retained a lot of resemblance to the national movement that it was. But I think after 67, I think the rapid decline started. And much of the failure of India 1.0, I would attribute directly to the Congress party as it existed after 67,
Mm.
especially after the emergency 75 and so on and so on. So, as I write in my book, it finally by 2004, it was a sort of quasi monarchy.
Mm.
And the quasi monarchy, I think, finally ended on May 14th, 2014, never to come back again. This I am fairly sure.
Mm.
And I think so. While India 2.0, in my view, hasn't begun as yet, I think India 1.0 ended on 14th of May 2014.
Mm. So, beginning with the 1947, even from 1947 to 1967, you say that was a honeymoon period. But there were structural problems, fundamental problems with it. The new republic that we formed. So, what do you see? I mean, you have written in it, but can you elaborate? Like, what are the main problems that we kind of inherited or we kind of manufactured without looking at our own civilizational past?
Inherited and manufactured. Nice. Nice verbs you have used there. Yes, we inherited some, we manufactured some
Yeah.
in our own unique way. Uh, the Constitution is not a holy book. I'd like to tell everyone it is not something to be worshipped. It's a frame of reference for us to set the broad vision for the country
Hmm.
and also a bit of the mission. More vision it should be and less mission. And since you use the words inherited and manufactured, I will elaborate. In my view, there were three major fault lines in our constitution of 1950, which actually became the manufactured part, which we made worse after 1950 because of our amendments. The reality of the constitution was partition,
Hmm.
because as a result of partition, the first major blow to the civilizational state of India, Bharat. In any civilizational state, of course, you realize that geography is very important. We Indians tend to be paranoid about territory, not other people's territory, mind you, but our own. So that any loss of territory is a civilizational loss.
Hmm.
And so we lost the Indus Plains, basically in partition. And reading the debates, and I think anyone who is interested in the constitution should actually read the transcripts of the original debates rather than look at somebody else's version and description of those debates, including my own. I mean, so many people have written about it, but I found reading those debates to be wonderful
Hmm.
experience for me, because you realize that they were ordinary people who wrote the constitution, maybe slightly more intelligent than average, extremely nationalistic, all of them. I don't think there was any member of that assembly who was working against the interests of our country.
Hmm.
And I think partition was very traumatic. I think while people had been talking about it, starting with Syed Ahmad Khan 50, 60 years prior to that, and then it keeps working up. They sort of knew it might happen, it might not happen, let's see what happens. Our typical chalta hai attitude, adjust karo attitude. I mean, that's been there all the time.
Hmm.
But I think finally when it happened, and it happened so quickly, and suddenly you realize that, Lahore and Karachi, we cannot go there anymore, practically. I think that trauma was a bit too much for the members. They couldn't even believe, I believe, that it actually had happened like this.
Hmm.
And then this set in an immediate reaction, in that a constitution that was going to be quite federal in character. It was going to be federal because the princely states were there, British India was there, and people appreciated that it was a very diverse country. Suddenly, all that was put aside. And I think the great fear that there would be a second religious based partition. Because if that had happened, Arihant, I don't think the country would have survived.
Hmm.
So I think the bending over backwards as far as Muslims were concerned, and I will say Muslims specifically, not just other religious minorities.
And they were insignificant.
They were insignificant, and actually these Muslims, they are not even a minority in India. I call them the second majority throughout my book.
Hmm.
I mean, even to call them minorities, I think is now both insulting to them and insulting to non-Muslims,
Hmm.
to call them as a minority. Something which is 20 crores strong. By no stretch of imagination
Almost as big as population of Pakistan.
just slightly, very slightly smaller than Pakistan. I think Pakistan is 2.2 crore today. So we're about 2 crore. So it's a huge
20.
number. It's a huge number.
No.
20, sorry. 22 crore and 20 crore, excuse me. And I think it's such a huge number. So I think fear of another partition, I think, made them bend over backwards. So then they started doing things which, in hindsight, look downright crazy.
Mm.
For instance, the famous Hindu bill of 55 or 56, the failure to implement UCC right then and there. Nehru saying that he didn't like Hindu communalism, but he was willing to tolerate Muslim communalism because the former would be nationalistic, according to him. For him, being nationalistic was a bad thing.
Ummaistic is okay.
Excuse me?
Ummaistic is okay.
That's right. So, so I think the first problem started with that. So the Hindu-Muslim thing,
Also, the articles from 25 to 30.
they're very bad.
Yeah.
Especially if you read 29 and 30, I think it's a travesty. And especially the implications of the right to education. And then you apply it to this 29, 30 and all that. And then you realize that minority institutions, basically, they've got a license to kill. There's nothing left. They can do anything they want.
It's not a shield anymore, it's a sword.
It's a sword. And then the other sorts of things where even in the judiciary, where a Muslim judge or a Christian judge or a Parsi judge or any other judge, not a Hindu judge, can comment and adjudicate on any religious matter belonging to any community, theirs and anybody else's. But no Hindu judge is allowed to comment on Islam, Sikhism or Parsis or Buddhists or any such thing.
Actually, we have internalized and formalized this setting
Yes.
in our laws. For example, if somebody, Minority Affairs Ministry, when Smriti Irani became a Minority Affairs Ministry, it was like affront. How can a Parsi become like they're also
Correct.
a minority? But
I think,
yeah,
I think that's a good move actually.
yeah,
My book doesn't talk about politics, but I think appointing Mrs. Irani to that post was, I think, a thoughtful move because we all know that she, by birth, she is a Hindu, by marriage, a Parsi. And for the first time ever, I believe that a non-Muslim has been
yes, first time.
and well, the formation of that ministry itself,
It's
I
a
think
travesty.
it's
Yeah,
a travesty. Exactly. I think there is good reason. I don't think any tears will be shed if that ministry is wound up.
yeah. Actually, in 2014, there was apprehension that Modi has come now, and the people working in that ministry, they thought that it will be wound up.
Well, but I see, Arihant, I don't understand why this nervousness from the minorities. I mean, a lot of it is exaggerated by our press, the foreign press, and this and that, which is another story altogether. But well, anyway, that is the first of the fault lines which the Constitution of 1950 did not address well enough, and then the amendments just made it worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
So that is the first.
Religion, minority versus majority. That is the first fault line.
Let us even simplify it further. I am a scientist.
Yeah.
Let us simplify all those other religions, those small ones, the true minorities. Hindu, Muslim. Say the two words.
Yeah. Hindu, Muslim. That is the first fault
That
line.
is the first fault line in the Constitution.
That was constitutionalized.
Constitutionalized, institutionalized, all the allied. Everything were realized.
Yeah.
Now it's a fact. Second is this upper caste, lower caste business. Now here, see, the history is this didn't have anything directly to do with partition, but this was also inherited in a way. Some states, notably in the south, had begun a process of reform in this even 40, 50 years before independence. This is not generally so well known by people in the north. One of the facts I've mentioned that in the old princely state of Mysore, the reservations for non-Brahmin communities began as early as 1890. Now in Madras presidency, when the Justice Party came to power in 1920 or so, That is when it was institutionalized. There in the south, it was plain and simple. It was Brahmin and non-Brahmin. Because the feeling was that the Brahmins, who were under the patronage of the dominant non-Brahmin caste, after the British consolidated their rule, they started getting the jobs in the government. So those who were their wards started bossing them. That was the apprehension developed. So it wasn't really to do with caste, but it had more to do with Brahmins and non-Brahmins. So the Justice Party was based on that, the forerunner of Dravida Kazhagam, which then became Dravidam Netra Kazhagam, etc., etc. So the ideological origin of all these things come from these so-called Dravidian or non-Brahmin movements. Now, the Constituent Assembly realized there was a problem, because while Ambedkar started the matter after the Pune Pact with Gandhi, when reservations for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes became actually codified, and after 1930-31, it was clear that scheduled castes and scheduled tribes were going to be given proper representation in any constitutional setup. This was 16 years before independence. It was already there. And don't forget also, at the time of partition, when Jinnah made the mischievous suggestion to Ambedkar that scheduled castes were not Hindus, and he wanted them to come over to Pakistan, etc., etc. And Ambedkar rightly rejected this offer, and he said that they were Hindus. So I think that started, but there is no doubt and no question about, for example, Article 17 and all that, which bans untouchability. So that is not even being discussed. When the members from the south, especially Madras and Mysore, started howling that, see, what they were called was not backward castes but backward classes. So this distinction between class and caste was there. Gradually, through our Supreme Court, these two have been, harmonized into the same thing. And I think there is this judgment, Indira Sawhney or something, where they said that actually caste and class is the same for this. But Ambedkar has actually gone on record in the assembly as saying that unless we decided to discuss this point and then include those backward classes of South India, they would not find a representation in this reservation part. And don't forget that in 1950, I don't think it was envisaged that the reservations would ever cross 22.4%. So it was taken to include those so-called backward classes of South India. The origin of backward castes in North India, the OBC movement, started very much later. So when VP Singh and Devi Lal and all these people started coming up in the 1990s, I think that was when these two things got conflated. By this time, the DMK, of course, had been merrily going on and increasing their reservations beyond the 50%, and Jayalalitha's famous 9th schedule thing. Even 9th schedule itself is an anachronism. To say that there is something that is beyond anybody's jurisdiction and competence to look at. When you can't have something forever, which is beyond anybody's,
cast in stone.
So the 69% when it was there. So then you see, then
69% is actually the figure. If you look at it, the caste which are part of it, I think it covers more than 90% of the population of Tamil Nadu.
About 98. I mean, Brahmins are about 2 to 3%.
Yeah.
So basically, everybody who is not a Brahmin
is a
in
part
Tamil
of
Nadu
reservation system.
is part of the reservation system. But that was the whole purpose of the Dravidian movement. So they said the wicked ones are the Brahmins. And so they are the fellows who have to be sort of. So then with the OBC thing started, now you see what has happened, Arihant, is that all the political parties have gotten onto this tiger and then they can't get off. When anybody tries to get off the tiger, we know what will happen to them. The tiger will eat them up. So anybody who is going to say anything about caste and reservations will promptly go and lose the next election. And no political party wants to lose an election knowingly. So The only solution is to go on increasing the reservations. Today it's Maratha, tomorrow it is Pasmanda. It is something, it is something, it is something. Supernumerary. Now, if you add, now Supreme Court still believes in 50%. So, if you add 50 and 69, I think you get 119% or something.
Hmm.
Then, if you add 10% economically weaker sections, you get 129%. So, what is the meaning of 129%? No meaning. So, Ambedkar himself said, he was talking tongue in cheek in the assembly. He said, you've got to balance equality of opportunity with the social equity.
Hmm.
Because he says you can't have both of them, and so the assembly has decided to take a middle path where we will hand out some reservations but for a limited period of time. Then he actually goes on to say that if a community has 70% reservation, it's not a reservation anymore.
Hmm.
So now the Tamil Nadu, with whether it is 69 or 98 or 119 or 129, whatever it is, we don't know. It's a problem for mathematicians
Hmm.
to solve, not you and me. And so, what's the meaning of all this? Does anybody believe in these reservations anymore, except Brahmins who can somehow never be educated? I mean,
Hmm.
so that is fixed. So this would also be, I think, a nice laboratory experiment
Hmm.
in our constitution to see, how Tamil Nadu can be, worked into the scheme of things, because it seems to be quite progressive in this regard in terms of where to go and what to do.
Hmm.
So maybe we also have some things to learn from them. I do not know, but this is the second fault line. So if they have not at least addressed it,
Caste.
and we have also these hereditary regional parties which are based on caste, like the Samajwadi party in Uttar Pradesh
Hmm.
and several other
Which
outlets.
prevents us from forging a more strong nation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All these caste-based parties.
It can't. Because on the one hand, I mean, let's put it this way. I'm talking logically. Yeah? Now, as you know, I don't have any particular political inclination or one way or the other. Whoever takes my Bharat forward, I will go for that political party. I'm very simple, plain and simple about this. Now, you say you don't want caste. You say you have outlawed untouchability. You have this prevention of atrocities of SC/ST, that act. So officially, we don't recognize caste. Officially. Then you have caste reservations.
Hmm.
So you have an application form where you're asked to put your caste. So how can you have both? On the one hand, you say that I don't recognize there is a thing called caste. Then immediately you are applying a reservation on the basis of caste. So then what is the end to this issue? So that means you're going to have reservations forever.
Hmm.
What about this creamy layer issue? And whereas there may be some case for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe reservations to continue, because I view scheduled caste, scheduled tribes issue as quite different from the OBC issue.
Hmm.
Because there, it seems to me at least, that there is a genuine complaint that even if they have advanced in terms of their jobs, their education, the incomes that they earn, they might have advanced in every sphere. There is still a feeling that the discrimination against them still persists because they are scheduled caste, scheduled tribe. There may be truth in this
Hmm.
complaint, which is why I believe that the issue of reservations for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe has to be taken up very sympathetically.
Hmm.
It is not something that you can, pass edicts and do this and that. But when it comes to OBCs, now this has become a major part of the electoral calculations of the big political parties today. So balancing these castes in issuing tickets to the assembly, the Lok Sabha and all that.
Hmm.
It has become a major issue, and it seems that people do tend to vote a little bit on the caste, although in all fairness, it seems they are also voting for developmental issues.
Hmm.
Shall we say then that people take a basket of factors before they cast a vote? certainly one cannot say that caste is not one of those factors. So there may be a factor. So as long it is there, the OBC reservation, to my mind, was more about electoral gimmickry. I don't think it had anything to do with, because some of the OBC communities, and sometimes a community is defined as OBC in one state, it's not an OBC somewhere else. So, and there was
It's a crazy system that we have built. Like Jats, for example, are OBCs in all the districts of Rajasthan, but not in 2 districts.
I've been told this example.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I know.
And there are so many examples. There are areas which are classified as STs, and even Brahmins in that area are STs.
I heard that somebody else was telling me
It's
there's a
there in Himachal.
particular surname, North Indian surname. They said it was OBC in one part of the state and not OBC in another part. They say the same surname. So it is. See, this needs a thorough cleaning. It can't go on like this. And as I've written in the book,
this is actually the third rail of Indian politics.
you can't allow admission to an IIT to depend on how far from the village well your ancestors used to live. Especially when you are not living in that village anymore. You are living in a big city like Delhi or Mumbai. So how does it matter how far from the village well your ancestors used to draw water from? But that's deciding the IIT admission today, Aryan. This is actually, I think it's not just wrong, I think it's immoral. And I think our politicians and all these fellows, they have
It's very
continued with this immorality.
Yeah, it's very interesting that when we talk about Muslim question and Mughals, for example, or the other Islamic invaders, everybody in the country, every elite in the country will say that we should not punish the today's generation for the sins of committed by their forefathers. But when it comes to caste,
Brahmins have to be punished.
I mean, upper caste, they have to be, basically, they are guilt tripped. They have to answer for their crimes through the reverse discrimination today.
See, how many people in the north even know that a legislator or minister, I forgot who, from the ruling party has recently said that all the 2% of Brahmins in Tamil Nadu should be killed. Killed.
Who was that?
I forget the name, but they're there in the social media everywhere.
DMK guy.
I don't know, maybe the ruling party, possibly.
Okay.
But people are allowed to say this and nobody even cares. So then the value of the word itself probably doesn't mean anything.
And we talk about hate speech and we should have laws, and nobody cares about this hate speech.
For some kind of hate speeches, it goes all the way to the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
which will open up a midnight hearing to declare that so-and-so thing is not kosher. But other kinds of hate speech are okay. See, there's a lot of inconsistency in the social structure itself of the country, which means, of course, it's a country in churn. So when Manthan is going on, that's why I say Republic 2.0 has not started.
Yeah.
We are in the process where, I tell you what has happened. The positive thing since 2014 is that many of us Indians have now begun to start realizing who we are. And I have written in the book specifically that the election result of 2014 and 2019, more than showing that BJP is very clever in mobilizing the votes, which it does show, it means that large number of Indians started thinking in the same way about who they are. And I think this heavy raps on all discussions which the Congress party, just stifled all this stuff. This, I think, suddenly is like the lid of a pressure cooker blowing off. So I think people started expressing what they felt. I mean, I've lived in this country for just almost all my life, except for 6 years when I was in the US as a student, and a little bit after that just working for a couple of years. But I've lived here all my life. But I think a book like this, I wouldn't even have thought about writing it before 2014. So I think many of us have started expressing ourselves. Some maybe imperfectly through social media and all the kind of clutter that you see in Twitter and Facebook and all that. But it is something is coming out finally.
Hmm.
And you talk about Delhi and you talk about Mughals. We need also some support from the state. For example, I question certain things like uh, we're doing this interview in Delhi. I've just come here through all these famous stately roads of Lutyens, Delhi, and probably so have you when you came to the studio. They were all named after some British people whom we don't know. Then they changed the names, but then all the names changed were the Mughal emperors.
Hmm.
So this very unsavory confluence of Britishers and Mughals, it seems to be all that Delhi has today. And well, you take Aurangzeb Road, that was changed to Abdul Kalam Road. It's nice. But why feel that you must replace a Muslim name with another Muslim name? Why can't you replace it with a non Muslim name? I don't think one should be this nervous. It doesn't bespeak of civilizational confidence.
Hmm.
That you want to do everything thoda, very, very incrementally only.
Hmm.
So that you don't, offend anyone. And then you shouldn't do this. It may go to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court will tell you something.
It's a loser's mindset.
It's exactly what it is. Then why are we so this thing? And then the third, of course, which then brings me to the major point of the book, is the center state business.
Hmm.
So these are the three fault lines, as I said: Hindu, Muslim, upper caste, lower caste, center and state. Yeah, this is directly inherited and manufactured both. The inherited part was from partition. The manufactured is all the crazy things we have done. We have done a couple of things correctly in states reorganization.
Hmm.
I think one of the very good articles which they have not touched is Article 3, which gives overriding powers to Parliament to make and unmake states.
Hmm.
And
That's really good.
all this stupid talk on also in the Tamil Nadu and other places that we are a union of states, Rahul Gandhi, all this kind of thing is all false.
Yeah.
There is no union of states. The states were created purely by the center for administrative convenience. Tomorrow, if I say state XYZ goes away, Parliament has that power with a simple majority, not even special majority is needed for that.
Hmm.
Okay, so you can just simply remove a state just like that. Parliament can, without any reference to the state legislature of the state that is being dissolved.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that is one good article we have. Otherwise, there would have been even more trouble. But I think where they did properly in states reorganization was 1966 Punjab. Punjab, Himachal, Haryana, I think that was done well. I think the Northeast was done beautifully well. I think the way gradually that whole undivided Assam became 7 states, taking into account all the local sensitivities, languages, ethnic diversities, I think the way that was done, a very unstable and unsteady part of the country has been brought into the mainstream, and especially after 2014, I think when the BJP government in the center has really given extra special consideration for the Northeast. And I think this, see, we Indians are very fond of being critical on ourselves. But when something is being done well, one should be able to say openly that this was done well.
Hmm.
And the other thing which was also sort of a reference point for me, again, I'm a scientist, so we start always asking questions like, why did this happen? Why did that not happen?
Hmm.
And I was thinking about language. And coming from the South, when I speak many South Indian languages, and so I realized that language is a very, very emotional issue.
Hmm.
And then you have the old Andhra of 1956, which was the first linguistic state. It was a landmark event. And then it paved the way for bifurcation of Bombay into Maharashtra, Gujarat and stuff like that on the basis of language. Now things going on, but Telangana was always different from coastal Andhra. I have lived in Hyderabad for full 30 years.
Hmm.
And so I know how different Telangana is from Andhra. It's certainly not the same in so many different ways.
Hmm.
Now, apart from the bifurcation of the Hindi speaking state of Uttar Pradesh into Uttarakhand, originally Uttaranchal, which then became Uttarakhand, undivided Andhra, the first linguistic state, was the first non Hindi speaking state to be partitioned again. Now, what firmer evidence do you need that language, which might have been okay at some time in the past, does not need to be an accurate enough measure of diversity anymore? So, language is not such a powerful thing as we think it is, you know. And also, the older the language, the better it is, also is a falsehood. A language is something that societies develop on the basis of utility and convenience. A language is nothing more than that. We don't have to sort of give ourselves a lot of greatness saying that my language is older than yours. That also is not a thing. So when I looked at this center state issue, I came to the thought that this problem has not been addressed because of partition. And now we also have states that are now too big. UP, Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra. Typically, these are very big states. Actually, many are very big, but these are the four biggest. And one doesn't need states this big are not administratively convenient to handle. This has been spoken about. Panikar's States Reorganization Committee of 55-56 itself said UP should be bifurcated. It's way too big. But of course, nobody paid any attention to it. And UP is so important to get into the Lok Sabha with a majority, so that any party wants a majority in UP. And if it can't get that, it tries to
I don't
split the
understand
votes there.
how how it matters, because it's not like US where you if you get majority of the votes you get all the seats. It's not like that. You have to win each seat separately, right? In our system, it's not electoral college.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. But you see the importance of cardinal importance of UP in getting a majority in the Lok Sabha. Because if you capture UP by some way, then you're almost guaranteed to form the government at the center. So many seats from UP. On the other hand, the only strategy of an opposition group is to fragment the vote in UP so that nobody gets full majority in UP, so that then it will pave the way for a coalition government. So for whether you are in the ruling party or whether you are in the opposition, UP is of great importance. And it need not have that kind of importance. Should not. I mean, Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra are important for other reasons. But I came to the point that states should not become politically too powerful.
Yeah. You said that UP is slightly different from West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra.
Yes.
In what way? Because I think you said that
UP,
being so much...
UP has never ever had a role saying that we are different from the rest of the country. UP is the country.
Yeah.
What can I say? I am not from UP, I am from the south.
Yeah.
But I always feel UP is the crucible of this nation.
Yeah.
The Ganga and the Yamuna, even Radhakrishnan says that in the Constituent Assembly. The waters of the Ganga and the Yamuna. I think this is something that means emotionally a lot for many of us. Doesn't matter where we are from India. The words Ganga and the word Yamuna, it signifies a lot of meaning. So, whereas Bengal and Tamil Nadu, definitely there is a feeling that we are somehow not like you guys. For whatever reason. Maharashtra is a problem state, I think, for different reasons. It's too big and it's too rich. So, when you have something like that, you see the recent sad experiment in that MVA government. We can see what happens in a state like that with our parliamentary democracy system. You can actually have the whole thing descend into shambles, out of which it's very difficult to extricate yourself. Because you can't tell people, you vote in this particular way or something. People will vote whatever they feel like voting, And so then the aim of the game should be to do it in such a way that my bifurcation into 75 states is administratively convenient. It prevents a state from becoming politically too strong. At the same time, it allows the state to become economically strong. A
Hmm.
small state can leverage its niche economy and become a world leader in a small area. And this is, I think, the economic basis for division of states. It's not an emotional issue. Huh? Please,
Yeah.
please don't take this division of 75. He wants to balkanize the country. Whole country will disintegrate. No, we are a civilizational state. As long as I'm talking this Ganga Yamuna line, we will not disintegrate. No fear.
So, Professor Desiraju has proposed this idea that India should have 75 different states, and this is the map. Basically, we will put it up, digital map of this. I hope it's available. Some PDF may.
Yeah, PDF mein.
Yeah. So, I want to focus more on this
Oh,
in the
sure.
rest of our conversation because rest of the things that you have discussed a lot in other podcasts, but this is something that usually does not get talked about.
I don't know why, Arihan. People don't seem to want to talk about this 75.
I mean, this is the most one of the most interesting aspects of the book. So let's start with the South India. Now you have proposed that Tamil Nadu should be broken into four states:
Oh, yeah.
Chola Nadu, Pandya Nadu, Kongu Nadu, and
Kondai Mandalam.
yeah. So these four states. Why?
Why? Nice. The Tamil Nadu is a very important state at present.
Yeah.
Crucial place. Geography. It controls the sea routes to the straits between the Gulf and the Straits of Malacca. The US is highly interested in that part of our country.
Hmm.
So, by having a thing called Pandya Nadu, which is in the southernmost extremity of that,
Yeah.
you are developing a strategic area there. That is the strength of that place. Okay. So that whatever needs to be done. Also, don't forget it is very, very far away from China and Pakistan, our two hereditary enemies. So, there is a reason also to develop that strategically. And a state like Pandya Nadu might then be able to develop a healthy relationship with Sri Lanka.
Hmm.
This would include basically everything south of Thoothukudi, Rameswaram, all that area, and Cape, Kanyakumari. That is a strategic value. Kongu Nadu, it is clear commercial calculation.
Hmm.
There has been a demand for Kongu Nadu for a long time. And we know it is also the commercial capital, Coimbatore, or Kovai as it is called. So, Kovai and Tirupur will become the textile hubs of the whole country. They will beat Bangladesh and Ecuador and Philippines. All these places will be nowhere if this is energized properly and leveraged properly.
Hmm.
Without wondering who is a Brahmin and who is a non-Brahmin. You forget all that.
Hmm.
But you just say, I'm going to make this the textile capital of the world. This is why we have to throw away caste and language.
Hmm.
Better textiles will be produced in Kovai, not because Brahmins and non-Brahmins are doing it or because they speak Tamil or Telugu. I think this is what I think public have to start saying this, because politicians will never say it. So that is Kongu Nadu. Then Chola Nadu is simply the granary. Along with 2-3 other spots in India, it will give you paddy for the whole country. Basically.
Yeah.
Okay, and it is because of the Kaveri, which is... so, you see, what happens is that the Commerce Ministry in Kongu Nadu, the Agriculture Ministry in Chola Nadu, and the sort of Police Home Ministry of Pandya Nadu will become important. Kondai Mandalam is the Chennai. So, it is the international city. I think Mumbai, Chennai and Kolkata have to be made like 3 Singapores. Or 3 Dubais. They are not, they are all bigger than the states which contain them.
Yeah.
So, and then that is why, because I wanted to put that, that is why I put the satellite town Kanchipuram as the capital. I have not only suggested 75 states, but I have put 75 capitals.
Hmm.
So sometimes the reader should see some of those capitals I have changed from what might traditionally be expected. So today, if you look at the growth of Chennai, Chennai obviously can't grow to the east, so it grows only to the west. The Kanchipuram is practically become a satellite town
Hmm.
of Chennai, and it is also the ancient cultural capital.
Hmm.
It's the seat of the Pallava kingdom, and wherever possible, I've tried to bring in history also.
Yeah.
So history, geography, culture, religion. I have 4 Muslim majority states in the 75, and I'm not ashamed at all to have
Which
4
are
Muslim.
these?
One is Kashmir,
Hmm.
the valley only.
Yeah.
One is Kamtapur, which is the old Kuch Bihar and Malda,
Hmm.
that part in adjacent to Bangladesh. Then the third is Hastinapur, which is where you are living now, and western UP and parts of it which are in the present NCR.
Hmm.
And the fourth is Malabar, of course.
Hmm.
So these are 4 of them. And I think, yes, I mean, I already said, there are 20 crore Muslims. They are all Indians, I say. They are not some people who magically came from Arabia and somehow landed here. I mean, these are also some of the things we should grow out of. When you go on calling them minorities, they themselves will start feeling ghettoized.
Hmm.
I mean, one has never thought about this, how a Muslim feels about all these things.
ठीक है, ये हो गया आपका तमिलनाडु इज
Tamil Nadu. Actually, it's interesting. I start with Gilgit and Baltistan. I thought you'll ask me about that. But you started this, you started for South.
because I am choosing 4 states that you mentioned,
ठीक है,
है ना?
ठीक है.
Because Tamil Nadu, then we come to Maharashtra. So
Maharashtra
Maharashtra
is
is to be
easy.
yeah, in Konkan, Pune, Marathwada, Amravati and Nasik, basically 5 states.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Maharashtra was much easier for me. The first thing was to take Vidarbha and put it into the central zone.
Hmm.
And the zones were actually an idea of my second son, who helped me a lot in preparing this map.
Achha.
He said that, you have slightly darker lines,
Yeah.
So you have, those represent the macro diversities of our country.
Ah.
So Vidarbha actually goes from the southwest region to the central region.
Ah.
Don't forget, Nagpur was the capital of central provinces of the British times.
Hmm.
But for the fact that they share the same language, Nagpur is quite different from western Maharashtra and coastal areas.
Hmm.
Okay, so the only decision I had in Maharashtra, big one, was whether to keep Mumbai as a city-state or not.
Yeah.
So I said I will put it with Konkan, because in the next 20, 30, 40 years, Mumbai will become so big that it will spread into that whole hinterland. And there is a demand for a Konkani state for a long time. So I said it will be part of that. And so Konkan will help Mumbai, Mumbai will help Konkan. But the rest of the things fall together very naturally. It's the same districts of Maharashtra are simply divided into those new states.
6 states.
6 states, yes.
Then we come to West Bengal. So here it is.
All my friends in Bengal, I have so many of them, will like this part.
Paschim Bangla.
Yes.
Then Mallabhum.
Mallabhum.
And then
Kamtapur.
And Gorakhpur.
Gorkhapur.
Gorakhpur.
Gorakhpur is far away.
Yeah.
So, yes. So now Bengal is, few factors in Bengal have to be considered. It's a relatively newly inhabited part of our country. Till about 1000 years ago, Arihant, most of the delta areas were hardly populated. It was all swampy stuff. What we actually today call Vanga. Up to about Kharagpur, Asansol and all was populated. And that there's a geographical market division between the eastern part of West Bengal and the western part of West Bengal. So that Mallabhum, which is also based on the old Republic of Malla, that corresponds to this Kharagpur and the westernmost parts. It's geographically quite different. Okay. Now, the Kamatapur is actually a sort of a spillover from the Bangladesh side, with again quite ethnically also, religious also slightly different from the other parts. And Gorkha land, of course, Gorkha land from the English land, I made it Pur, Gorkha Pur, to not to have anglicized names. There has been a constant demand for a separate state there. And I don't believe that the Gorkhas are trying to set up their separate country or any such thing. It's just that again they feel Calcutta is so far away. And so then this leaves us finally, dear Arihant, only with Calcutta and its surroundings.
Western Bangla.
And we so yes, now that Vanga, most of Vanga went over into Bangladesh. So only the little bits of Vanga which are still in India, that is the Paschim part of Vanga. Actually, Mallabhum and Kamtapur, they are not Vanga at all. You know, if you take geographically, ethnically, culturally, it is not that community at all. So, and then once again, I said that when you have such a big city like Kolkata, then this should become your tomorrow Singapore. All the places, countries nearby, Myanmar, Singapore, Indonesia, they should all look towards Calcutta. Today, Calcutta is a decaying place. It's one of the few places, big cities in India, which doesn't grow in population. Do you know that? Population of Kolkata 30, 40 years ago, same as the population today. So many people are leaving that place.
No new migration.
No new migration. So this division of, and once again, the present population of Bengal is about 9 to 10 crores. It's way too big to be governed from Calcutta. And there is no question. See, there is an argument which I don't subscribe to, that since we have been partitioned, the present state of West Bengal is the only refuge for Hindu Bengalis. But I think this argument, I don't buy it at all. There is no place for Hindu Bengalis or Muslim Bengalis or Hindu Maharashtrians or Hindu Tamilians or anything. This is a place for Bharatiyas. This is a place for Bharat, which has got to be positively the most powerful and rich country in the world by 2075, not in PPP terms, but in absolute terms. So if we want to set that trajectory for ourselves, then we should stop talking about partition and Hindu Bengalis and all that kind of thing. And I'm speaking bluntly now. But these are emotional arguments which may carry weight for some time now. But this is Bengal, which is the most difficult. You don't want to talk about Kashmir.
Too much talk already about Kashmir. Now
but you must mention that I put Gilgit, and Gilgit is my state 1, Baltistan is state 2.
Then we come to Uttar Pradesh, the actual India.
Actual, real India.
So you are divided into too many states: Hastinapur, Braj, Panchal, Doab, Awadh, and Kashi.
Yes.
So 6 states.
Yes.
Again.
Okay.
What is the economic rationale behind this?
No, in the case of UP, I'll be frank, I'll admit, it is largely administrative convenience.
Okay.
So, and in the case of Kashi, it is a cultural thing. I think we need to re-establish Kashi as the cultural nodal point of Bharat. It's very important. And as I have written, Kashi, the city of Banaras today, brilliant example of coexistence of Hindus and Muslims. Hardly a stone's throw from the river is the area of Madanpura in Varanasi, which is the home of the famous Benares silk weavers, who are all Muslims. Okay? It is also close to the ancient center of Buddhism. 3 religions come there. The BHU, the biggest hospital in eastern UP and western Bihar is in the BHU campus. You know, where people come from all over the place. Kashi, Banaras, whatever it is the oldest, one of the oldest cities of the world. This, I don't think it is any coincidence at all that our Prime Minister has chosen to get himself elected to the Lok Sabha from there. It is a microcosm of India, Arihant. And so the reason for me demarcating Kashi according to its old limits, because if you take Araria and Bihar, all that was part of the old kingdom of Kashi. So I have simply brought that back. I have not, done so many new things.
Yeah.
Now, Doab, let me tell you, because I mentioned Doab. If you take all the cities from Mainpuri to Prayagraj, just the narrow strip between Ganga and Yamuna, which I have already referred to, the population of that Doab will be more than 180 countries of the world. It will be the 35th most populated country in the world. If you look at that area anthropologically, it is one of the oldest places in the world where human beings started living and settling. This is not some recent story. So, that how rich, how fertile Vedas and all were written in those areas. It was the home of a very, very rich civilization. Unless you are a very rich civilization, you can't write Vedas.
Sir, Vedas were written in Haryana.
Haryana, also always almost up to Afghanistan.
Yes.
They wrote all these.
Saraswati.
So this whole
Ganga Saraswati.
We are a country of 7 rivers, I say. Our whole life history is in those areas. So if you take Ayodhya, if you take Anga, if you take all these places in Mahabharata, all these things, as Macbeth says, the battle was won and lost only in these parts.
Yes. Sometimes
I feel, coming from the south, yes, we are also there, we are also proud Bharatiyas. But you have to admit that the pulse, the beat of this fantastic Bharat is in those areas. But I found it actually, I had the emotional experience to write the book. That starting from Gilgit and ending with Malabar, see what a beautiful country we live in. So many different things, so many different places, different kinds of people, and all of us having similar vibrations about similar big things. So I thought somehow this can be brought in with this 2 crores thing. Then there are pragmatic economic reasons, so that you now get economically strong states with a politically strong center. This is strong. Usually the common Twitter opinion is, if you have a strong state, you will get a weak center. If you get a strong center, you will get a weak state. Not at all. It depends what kind of strong you want. You really don't want an economically strong center. You want a politically strong center. And again, you want an economically strong state. You don't want a politically strong state. Bengal, Maharashtra, Punjab, Tamil Nadu are all border states. We have 7, 8 neighbors, none of whom are particularly friendly to us. They are neutral at best and enemies at worst. And some of our big states are border states. I call Tamil Nadu a border state. Maharashtra, we have a sea border. Sea border, land border is all the same. It is through our sea borders that we got into our colonial period. So sea border is still a border. It is not. So we have to be very careful about these things. These 3-4 states, I think my particular scheme will take care of this, because we can't become number 1 country in the world. Okay, if you want some number 3, number 4 to go on, chalta hai, the same thing, amendments, some 1,000 amendments, by then we will go on making. Still, we wouldn't have realized what is upper caste, lower caste. We will still be talking about that. But if you want to come out of that, what scientists will call first order phase transition, something totally different, then I think people should start seriously thinking about. I don't claim that everything I've written here is correct or accurate or is gospel. But I'm saying it is something that we should start thinking about. We Indians should start questioning sometimes that maybe some of the basic assumptions that were made in that constitution are not correct. We have never been encouraged even to start thinking like that. And as a scientist, I'll say, the 75 states thing, we scientists love to propose solutions. We always have to give a solution. Whether the solution is right or wrong, we don't care. If it is wrong, let somebody else show that it is wrong. Then we'll stand corrected. Scientists, we are never in love with our ideas. But we have to provide a solution. I think social scientists, the difference is that they are very happy to state the problem.
True.
But how many solutions have you got from these guys?
True.
Hmm?
लास्ट में सर एक कोट है आपकी बुक में से एस राधा कृष्णन का. उन्होंने ये काफी अच्छी बात कही. वी आर टुडे इन द मिड्स ऑफ अ हिंदू रेनेसांस,
Yes.
waiting for a new Smriti,
Exactly.
which will emphasize the essentials of the Hindu spirit and
Yes.
effect changes in its forms so as to make them more relevant to the changing conditions of India.
Correct.
So
Truer words could not be spoken.
yeah, so the new Smriti, isme what should be these three, four core components?
Two components.
Yeah.
One is diversity, one is dharma.
Hmm.
We have to optimize these two. These are our two strongest points.
But people say this, but what is dharma? Like, how
Dharma-
do you synthesize that in a modern state?
Yes, Radhakrishnan himself says somewhere that he says it is the mortal substance of immortal ideas or something like that, he says.
Yes.
Something of that sort. Now, how do we do that? Dharma simply means what is right and what is wrong. You have to be able to protect your boundaries, should protect your own people, and you can enhance dharma by, see, dharma and diversity go together in a civilizational state like ours. So you give all the people money through making them economically strong. They won't come and worry about which language they speak and which caste they belong. As long as you go on emphasizing this is what we are doing today is adharmic. This period of adharma has to end, Can't go on like this. Dharma is not just some buzzword which I am using. We all have to lead those kinds of lives. What did Gandhi say? He said, be the change you want to see or something. We are not being the change. And public have to do it, but most important, how much soever public wants, the people in power have to facilitate this. Just sitting and doing incremental thing, one more 5% reservation for some community, this is not the solution to the problem. It may get them a few votes now and then, here and there. Nothing more than that. What I am asking for in this book is a fundamental rethink on some of our so-called sacred cows.
But for example, one of your proposals is UCC, Uniform Civil Code. Isn't that adharmic in the sense that it tries to kill the diversity of this country?
How does it kill?
Because if you are imposing one code on every person from North Kashmir or to Tamil Nadu, and everybody is living in a different diversity culture, so it essentially kills if you implement one code.
No.
Basically, the rituals of all the communities throughout the country are different. Even within the one state are different. So how can you impose one civil code on that?
No, nobody is saying Hindus can celebrate a marriage whatever way they like, Muslims can do it. Probably what should be mandated is that in all cases you have to go for a registration of the marriage. So the secular aspects can be made uniform, and the cultural aspects, of course, we do whatever we can. But again, the same rule should apply. You can't have, for example, only a Hindu must take one wife, whereas a Muslim can take 4 wives. That is not correct.
But can't that be solved by bringing reforms into the Muslim personal law?
They're not doing it so far. There's no sign that they're doing it.
The reason why I'm saying is because
Nehru in fact said at that time, he said the Muslim community is not ready for it, and they have to reform within themselves, something like that. And Kripalani told him, you are mistaken. Actually, even now they're ready for it. So once they realize they have been so-called, if the government of the day, successive governments are pandering to extreme religious elements in the Muslim community, then you are not going to see a solution like that.
The reason why I'm
because
saying
Muslims
is that
accepted uniform criminal code even in the times of the British. They never insisted on Sharia.
I mean,
for cutting off hands and those punishments. They don't ask for that. It's coming down to question, Arihant, of marriage and inheritance. And today we know also that there's a powerful argument for uniform civil code, because the rights of Muslim women are very poor in the present system of Muslim personal law.
Hmm.
So there's a strong, social need to bring in UCC, quite apart from any cultural or religious connotations that it may have. I don't think it's such a difficult thing to bring in, actually.
Is it?
I mean, I've written in the book the results from the Pew report. 25% of Indian Muslims believe in the curative properties of Ganga Jal. 25% of Muslims believe in something called reincarnation. Indian Muslims are already very different from Bangladeshi Muslims and Pakistani Muslims in many of their cultural ideas. I mean, the Pew
But
report is all there,
It's just a matter of time, right? Because if you go back 100 years back, Muslims were like all Muslims were Indian Muslims only.
Yes.
So what changed that? What brought that change in Bangladeshi Muslims and Pakistani Muslims? That is years of radicalization, which we have also allowed in the last 30, 40 years. Wahhabization that we call.
Partly, but I think the fact that perhaps they only lived in the company of Muslims, I think rather than say, why did they become like how they've become, one should ask, why did Indian Muslims change? I use a new verb. I think Indian Muslims have gradually getting Sanatanized.
I think it's the reverse.
Well, I think
they're getting far away from it, because if you when somebody converts, right, they are not fully converted.
Yeah.
But as the process of radicalization with every generation goes on, it's 25% today, it will be 10% tomorrow, and then it will be 0%.
See, I think you should not club the cultural and the political aspects. I think this radicalized thing which we are seeing in Karnataka, some coastal areas, and in parts of UP and other things, this is all politically instigated. And I think it has to do with extreme elements of the Muslim community. If you take rank and file Muslims, I think all they want is a job and, some kind of a safe life. I don't think they're very different from us in this. If government starts pandering to them and encouraging here and there, then they will go that route. I think this is where the government is important. I think you and me talking about this is where some strong action, if it is taken. What did Ataturk do in Turkey?
But Ataturk
when he suddenly said cut off the beards and do all these things.
But he failed eventually.
But that doesn't mean we also have to fail. I mean, you are giving a line where the nature of Islam itself is only going to go in a certain way. But read the results of the Pew report. It is not my opinion. The Pew report really tells you that Indian Muslims are quite different from Bangladeshi and Pakistani Muslims.
They are. I agree with you. But for how long? That is the question.
That depends a lot on the state.
Because if we had a Pew kind of survey from say 30 years back, I think you would have found that 30 or 40% of Indian Muslims don't, are more culturally similar to Hindus.
Yeah, you would find that. I mean, the part of the country where I live, I think the mode of dress of both Muslim men and women has changed quite a bit in
the last 30 years.
In Karnataka, in the last 10 years, it has changed.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know the reason for this. It could also be temporary. If they realize the state is going to play fair and square among all communities, state has to be fair. It can't. There cannot be a perception that there is some kind of a witch hunt and all that.
State is more pandering to that community. Still, we are in this situation. That is the problem. If we become fair, we will be accused of discrimination. There is that quote, right? If you are habitual to favorable treatment, equality feels like discrimination.
Exactly, it does. But at the same time, there is yet another factor which we are not considering. As the Indian economy approaches 5 trillion, 6 trillion, many of the Hindu, Muslim and upper caste, lower caste problems will vanish. In upper caste, lower caste, you are already seeing intermarriage slowly in big cities. Not much, but it has started. So normally in other countries too, Europe especially, improvement in the economy reduced many of the... I think people run behind this Hindu, Muslim, upper caste, lower caste simply because they are poor. And they have no other way of expressing some identity. That's all that they have. So suppose the whole thing is geared a little bit towards making money, getting money, seeing everybody around you wealthy, you are also getting moderately wealthy. Whether you are Hindu or Muslim, or whether you are upper caste, lower caste, is going to matter less. This
Let's
also,
hope so.
I think this it's a human nature. The power
Professor,
of money being what it is.
yeah, fantastic discussion. Thank you so much for coming and giving so much of your precious time for us. And everybody should read Bharat 2.0. Fantastic book. Great suggestions, especially the part about 75 states. Really loved it because this is something that I have been in favor of. But of course, after realizing reading so much about politics, it seems impossible that anybody who has got power, they just don't want to let go of.
Well, they should be told that by having 75 states, they may have even more power. That's the way to tell politicians.
Yeah, but this line that state should be economically powerful and center should be politically powerful, not the vice versa, that is the way to go. And that should be the main takeaway for me, at least. That is the one. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for coming.
Arihant, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
indeed.
Namaste,
It's been a
sir.
great pleasure.